Well, hello, everyone. Thanks again for listening to Ultimate Health Media. We're excited to have you. I'm Dr. Brad Shapiro. It's going to be another exciting show, maybe extra exciting given the guests that we have. I've got my amazing sister, Heather Schapiro, with me. Hello.
Hello. You didn't introduce me as your older sister, which is typical. So thank you. I know it'll come up at some point.
Which is terrible because people think I'm the older brother.
Yes, they do.
Yes,
they do.
yes. She's aged very well, and it's sickening. But no, it's going to be a fun show. But before we get started, I'm going to give a standard disclaimer. So please understand that we're not trying to treat you over the airwaves. So if there are any healthcare concerns or if we talk about anything that sparks your interest, please seek out the healthcare provider of your choice, whether it's chiropractor like myself, a nurse like my sister, medical doctor, massage therapist, dentist, whatever the case may be. Please seek out the healthcare provider of your choice. So we'll go ahead and get started, but really just hoping to capture Heather's testimony, but I'll tell you up front, there's no telling where this conversation's going to go.
Amen.
So buckle your seatbelts. But I guess to kick it off, Heather, just maybe tell the listeners just some about, where you grew up and what's your kids and just your career and just some basic information about you.
Sure. So we grew up in Lexington, born and raised, lived there until I was 25 and got married. My ex-husband now was from the Bowling Green area. So we moved to the western part of the state. At that point, I have 3 children. Got divorced fairly quickly. And so I've been a single mother for, 20 years.
Wow.
Which is hard to believe. Yeah, my youngest, I have 2 boys, and then my daughter will actually be 21 in June. And
Man.
I got divorced soon after she was born, actually. So from there, I went to nursing school. I had not worked while I was married. And, of course, I had these 3 children that I needed to take care of and went to nursing school. And I've been doing that ever since. I've done kind of a variety in terms of nursing. I worked acute care and PACU and the ER. Actually just resigned from a hospice agency. I'm going to stay there as needed, but I'm going back to the hospital in their float pool. So that'll be variety, which I'm looking forward to.
Sure. And you like doing new things.
I really do. I like kind of the unexpected, not knowing what's going to happen. So, that's just kind of the basics of.
Sure. Yeah, and it's it's funny when you talked about, the 3 kids and Jake and I, we were talking last night. Heather's here with one of her sons, Jake, and we were talking last night. And, I can so clearly remember when Cole was a baby and when Jake was a baby and when Jenna was a baby. And it's just wild to see this 26-year-old man hanging out. We're shooting pool last night.
It is. Yeah. It's, you hear everyone says, oh, it goes by so fast and don't blink. And that is so true.
Yes.
And, but it's kind of an evolution, too, of this new phase. Because I think you're in fight or flight is too strong of a analogy. But you're just trying to keep everybody fed and clothed and on the right track. And all of a sudden they're grown and they have their own lives, and you're just like, what do I do now?
Yes.
You have all this time, but it's exciting. It's neat to watch them grow, but it's also neat to have that time to kind of reinvent yourself and follow a different path. And
I think that's a great point. Just so the listeners understand, like Heather mentioned, she had 3 kids. She's going through nursing school. Heather was actually valedictorian of her nursing school. So, Heather is for sure one of the brightest healthcare providers of any type I know. And I'm not just saying that because she's my sister.
Thank you.
Yes.
That's nice.
Yes. Just super talented. So going through nursing school, doing great, raising 3 kids, fight or flight, just going 90 miles an hour in all areas and trying to make sure everybody's provided for, and poof, now everybody's grown and they've got their own lives. And So she's really stepping into a new season in life. And that's part of why we wanted to do this podcast is, to talk about the new season of your podcast, Camel Crawl. And you've got way more, time on your hands so you can focus on new things. And so I'm just excited to see what happens with this new season.
Yeah, I really am too. I think it's interesting because you don't know what to do with yourself.
Yes.
And I think God kind of takes you back to ideas you've had in the past or things he's laid on your heart over years and years and years that it wasn't the right time.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden, it's very doable and it's exciting. And regardless of what happens with it, it's a lot of fun. It really is.
It's not going to be boring.
It's not going to be boring. I will make sure it's not boring.
Yes, yes.
But it's really it's been so nice to have that distraction and that focus, and it's positive, and you're looking for interesting people to interview and get their stories, and to me that's what it's all about. It's very relational.
Yes. Yeah, relational, intimate,
it
just
really
all the
is.
stuff. So what are some of the new things? Because I feel like we've talked about where the church is going, not about your church or my church, but the church, the big church.
Yes.
We've talked about your podcast, Camel Crawl. Talked about where you feel like women are, the roles in the church, and
yes.
What are just, I know that's a broad-based question, but just what are some of the things that you feel like are really on your heart right now?
Well, it's been interesting as this has evolved. I'll tell the story of the Camel Crawl first, just because a lot of people ask me, like, how did you come up with that name?
Yes.
And this was probably 15 years ago. It's been a very long time ago. Okay. I was listening to someone in the background, which it's not like I was sitting around listening to sermons all day long or anything. That just happened to be on.
Yeah.
And whoever was preaching or teaching was telling the story of the verse where the Bible speaks that it's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to get into heaven.
Yes.
And I've researched this to some degree. There's some dispute, I guess, as to whether or not this story's true, but whether it's true or not, it's always meant a lot to me.
Sure.
And whoever was explaining this stated that back in biblical times, there was a gate leading into somewhere important, which I'm assuming, is maybe Jerusalem. I don't know.
Yeah.
But this gate was so small that a camel had to kneel to be able to enter. And that gate, they referred to that as a needle. And so I got on a treadmill, had one, and I'm just thinking about this. It really fascinated me, that analogy.
Yeah.
And I think, it's all about our posture. So it's not that wealth is the sin in and of itself.
Yes.
It's how you posture yourself moving into anything.
Yes.
And I always said, if I ever do something, I'm going to name it the Camel Crawl. I had no idea what that was going to be. At the time, I didn't know it'd be a podcast or what it would be. But it stuck with me all these years. And then I decided, with kids being out of the house and just wanting to do something, and I love having these conversations. I truly do, regardless of what it's about. I love hearing people's stories.
Yes.
And seeing how they've come through the other side or sometimes gone the opposite direction, before they come back. And I decided to do this, and my faith is, God's been a huge aspect and comfort in our lives. But when I look back, that's one thing I will say, and I tell my kids this: whenever you're going through something, it looks a lot different at 50 than it does at 20.
Yes.
Because you don't have those spiritual muscles at 20. You have the Holy Spirit.
Yes.
But when he brings you through things time after time after time, you don't have the same anxiety.
Yes.
Because you have the experience. And when you're young, you don't have that experience to know, hey, God's got this.
Yes.
You know, it's going to be okay. But going back to your original question in terms of the church, as many people as were excited about this and supportive, I really ran into some backlash for lack of a better word, that I did not anticipate at all.
And by saying that, you're talking about stepping out to do your own podcast.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. I feel that some people maybe thought that I was positioning myself, because it's going to be a YouTube channel, as some sort of public ministry, which, I'm not going to be able to do this and not speak about my faith.
Sure.
But that was never, ever the original plan, was to become, a Paula White, or, not that... I probably shouldn't have said that. We might need to edit that out, but you know what I'm saying.
No, and I mean, it's your classic, if you want to hear God laugh, tell him your plan.
Yes.
These things can morph into more than we can imagine sometimes, and it can also, sometimes it's threatening for people.
Yes.
But it has been interesting, because you've had a lot of people that you thought would have been very supportive that just weren't, and even tried to discourage you, and
yes,
they didn't even stay neutral, but really trying to discourage. And so
well, it's interesting, because I think when people who have been so supportive to some degree, and then you step outside of that, and all of a sudden you're a Jezebel or a Judas.
Yes.
And you really kind of, but I think God has used that too,
Yes.
because it's given me pause.
Yes.
It's really made me focus on, why am I doing this? Because again, I just knew I wanted to do it. I knew I wanted to talk to people. I knew I wanted to have conversation that was authentic and genuine.
Yes.
But I hadn't honed in, like, what's the goal here? And I think God has used the opposition
Yes.
to force me to focus on his plan and focus on him and pray into this. And you've been a huge part of that. I finally, as a single woman, what I battled with, because I do think that covering is so important.
Yes.
I think it's biblical. I am old school in the sense that I believe in a biblical order. I think the Bible speaks clearly on that. So I'm not a Christian feminist. I don't know that even exists,
Yeah.
But at the same time, when you're single and you're not married, and there's not that, you have to say, okay, who am I accountable to other than Jesus Christ?
Yeah.
Is it just any Christian man? Is it, a pastor, an elder, a deacon, Joe Blow on the street, whoever? And your support has been huge, because I feel like I have a strong, faith-centered man in my life.
Thank you.
Who is supportive of this. So that means a lot to me. It truly does.
Well, it's just kind of a no-brainer. I mean, it really is, and I'm happy to fulfill that role. And but it's also just, I know you so well, and I know you're a strong person, and it's just, I want to see you shine. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's just, Heather's just not the damsel in distress type person. I mean, you can talk about strong men, strong women. I mean, she's just a strong person. And so she's called to go for it. And I'm excited to see her go for it. But we also all need to be under a covering and held accountable.
Yes.
And I've got people in my life, I've talked about in so many past shows, that I've got several people in my life that know what's going on, and I know wouldn't hesitate to jump on me if they see me going off the rails.
Yes.
I've got a consultant that sees all my financial stuff, so he would know if I was, running off doing this or that financially. Yes. I've got people that, a pastor that's over me spiritually, and a spiritual mama that's over me spiritually, and I've got people that, I'm discipling as well, and just we all need each other.
It's interwoven and connected. That's the way God intends it.
Yes.
It truly is.
Yes,
I mean,
sure.
I think it's been that way from the beginning.
Yes, absolutely. But it's neat to see you to step into this, and I'm excited. I really am. You've always worked for other people or been in a situation where you just didn't have the level of freedom that you're going to have.
Yes.
With doing this podcast. I mean, and what does that feel like? Does it feel strange? Does it feel exciting? Does it feel both?
It feels very exciting. The managing my time and my efforts and my goals has not been the issue, but God is just so good. There's a lot more to it than I ever thought there would be.
Yeah.
And it's given me a lot of time to think and pray and talk to God about, because when you're going to do something like this, you're putting yourself out there.
Yes.
And you have to think, okay, how authentic am I willing to be?
Yes.
Like, what are the things I'm willing to say? What are the parts of my story that I'm willing to share?
Yes.
How do I want to present myself? And after you do these, circus rings in your mind over and over, you're like, you can just be out there and be what it's meant to be. You can't overthink it. You've got to be willing to say the things and not double or question yourself.
No, and there is a component of stepping out on faith, and
there is.
And I like how you emphasize too the pushback that you got from people that you thought were going to be encouraging, but they were actually discouraging. But you recognize that pushback added to the refinement.
It shaped this in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I think about a lot of just in general, whether it's chiropractic or a lot of the things I do are not necessarily mainstream, and I've got to think about, could I really defend this, or what do I really believe, or just some of those things for me, at least personally, like COVID was a great example. It really got me thinking, what do I really believe about health?
Yes.
What do I really believe about the immune system? What do I really believe about lifestyle? And just I really had to think, do I really, am I going to stand on what I've preached for years,
Yes.
or am I going to fold? Or but you have those moments where if you're just in an echo chamber and everybody agrees with you and everybody's saying, "Oh yeah, you're right on," it's not going to refine you like a little pushback will. And God makes all things work together for our good.
He does.
Including people that are trying to discourage us.
He does. Well, and I think, too, it made me... one of the frustrating aspects of that is I am very opinionated. I'm a very decisive person. So I'm not a wallflower in the sense, but I'm also not a theologian.
Yeah.
Like, the goal in having faith-centered conversations is to bring in people who know more than I do.
Yes.
And bounce. So it's not to be an authority. It's to funnel out and kind of go, but the Holy Spirit, he tugs on all of us, and we all have that equally. So to have the conversations with people who are more educated than I am, whether it be health, natural health, medicine, faith, reinvention, money, culture, whatever, politics. I'm not much of a politician, but you know what I'm saying. That's the interesting aspect for me.
Yes, and we all learn together. Yeah. We all learn, and they're going to learn from you, and you're going to learn from them, and steel sharpens steel.
Yes.
And you just don't really know what you don't know till you start having those conversations.
You don't.
You don't always know what's going to come out.
And when you learn something, for me,
yeah,
one of the most fascinating aspects of life is truly learning. That it's stimulating to learn something that you didn't know before.
Yes.
That makes perfect sense, and a lot of times it'll pull all the pieces of a puzzle that's been in your head that you didn't even know was there, and you're like, ding, ding, ding.
Yes.
Well, gee, that's why.
Yes.
So,
what are some of the guests that you have in mind for the camel crawl?
Well, I live in Kentucky still. I'm still in Bowling Green.
We're trying to get her to move down here. Maybe one day.
Maybe one day, but I got my babies.
Yes,
they take priority. Sorry, Brad.
I understand.
We love coming down here. We really do. And your friend group is such an interesting, eclectic, diverse. I love your friends.
Yes.
And I feel like I'm going to be piggybacking off of you quite a bit, but they're just people I'd love to sit down and have a conversation with.
Including Michael Lee here at Rare Records, where we're recording this podcast.
I love meeting your friends. I was thinking the same thing, and we were up there. I'm like, he'd be a great one to interview.
Oh, he was my first interview, actually.
Was he?
Yes. Oh, yeah. Michael's awesome.
Yeah, so I really, in terms of people... Well, the ultimate goal, and I'm going to give a wink out to Mel Gibson.
I knew we were going to go in this direction sooner or later.
Yeah.
And Mel.
Old Mel.
Yes.
Yeah. So, Mel, if you're listening, I'm coming for you, buddy.
Yes.
No, all joking aside, I think Joe, Edward, Lisa, Avery, Michael. I mean, there's a whole... Joey, Bevo, Jethro is his nickname.
He's affectionately known as Jethro.
Yes, I've given him a Kentucky nickname.
Yes.
But there's a whole host of people that I think would make for a great conversation. And just hearing people's life story in and of itself, it doesn't have to be some focused conversation on any specific topic, but a progression through life is interesting.
Which, speaking of life story and testimony, when would you say you really got serious about your walk with the Lord? Or I feel like we both grew up in church to a certain degree, but we just really, I really remember going in holidays and here and there. I for sure didn't consider myself to be a Christian as a kid. I would have said that, but I didn't really know what I was saying, type deal.
I would agree with you, and I've had these conversations with other people. There's never, ever in my entire life been a time that I questioned God or the existence of God. And I've always believed that Jesus Christ was the Son of God and died for our sins, and that we're saved by the blood. The things I didn't understand in my younger years were, for instance, the difference, I guess the theological difference between a works-based faith and being saved by grace, which I firmly believe we are saved by grace and grace alone.
Yes.
I didn't understand the Trinity to a large degree. So part of my issue, as crazy as this sounds, is I loved God so deeply. Even now, I'm not saying I lived right. I'm just saying that I truly, truly love God from such a young age that I had a very difficult time acknowledging Jesus. It almost felt like betrayal. I didn't understand that Jesus was God in the flesh.
Yes.
So when it just gave me chills saying that. When that registered for me, when God revealed that to me, that's when everything changed. And honestly, I remember it. I was walking down a hallway in Muhlenberg County in an old farmhouse.
Yeah.
And had just really been praying about it. And I'm like, God, you're telling me to love Jesus.
Yeah.
And I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
And as soon as I kind of surrendered to that command, he revealed all of it to a degree.
And see, I think that's something that people really need to ponder. Pastor Jerry used to always say, you're saved by faith, not by intellect.
Yes.
It's just, it sounds like, and I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but it sounds like even in that moment, it didn't make intellectual sense.
It didn't.
You just decided that, you know what, I'm going to do it.
That's what you're telling me to do, and I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
And again, it wasn't, it just felt like I was betraying. Like, how much I love you, God. Why do I have to love him too? Kind of thing.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
And
I think that's a great insight. And it's interesting how we all just have these different stumbling blocks.
Yes.
For me, I was just very much into pluralism. I just thought all roads had to lead to heaven. And so to let that go was really hard for me. But it also, once I stepped out on faith, it was just a no-brainer, that, Jesus truly is the way, the truth, and life, and the only way the Father is.
There is no other way.
There is no other way.
There's no plan B.
Yeah, that was hard for me to let go of a plan B, for sure. But it's just interesting to hear those different struggles, and that's the kind of thing I love talking about on these kind of shows or on Camel Crawl. Is just that's the kind of stuff that you're not going to stand up in front of your church and tell,
Yes. Well, and I think going back to church too, and I don't want to speculate, but I know I felt this way. I think in terms of the church as a whole, which God is doing a lot of deconstructing with the church, but because of my struggles in my life and my failures and everything that happens to everyone in a different context, walking into a church, I always felt like somebody was going to tap me on the shoulder. And I heard somebody say this years ago, and I've never forgotten it. He was actually a very successful businessman.
Yeah.
And he said, every room I walked into, I felt like somebody was going to tap me on the shoulder and say, you don't belong here.
Yes.
And I think a lot of people feel that way walking into a church.
Yes.
Whatever they're struggling with, whatever their life circumstances are, they feel like they're not good enough.
Yes.
And somebody within the church, which sometimes is the case, unfortunately, it's not of God.
Yes.
Is going to say, hey, you don't belong here.
No, and I think people also feel like even if that's never verbally said, they feel like everybody around them, that's what they're thinking. You know,
that's so true.
That's
yes.
what, it's, you just get into this weird, mind warped situation to where you're determined that you know what everybody else is thinking and they don't think very highly of you. And it just gets all so twisted so quickly I think for a lot of people. And I've felt that way before. I think most people have.
Yeah.
So, well, so when are you going to launch Camel Crawl?
Well, I'm going to start recording next week.
Okay.
And the goal is, of course, I'm kind of a OCD perfectionist to a degree.
Yes.
And so I've really been planning this to the best of my ability.
Yes.
But I'm going to stack some episodes. So I'm going to start recording next week. I'd like to have 5 or 10.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm going to have to learn the editing process. Again, there's so much more to this than which has been fun.
Yes,
it's a new skill. And
yes.
I always thought, AI was potentially demonic, and it might be, but it's really been useful
terms of
in learning all this.
Yeah.
So I'm going to try to stack 5 or 10 episodes, and that way I can put out 3 or 4 at a time, and then have a cushion.
Yes.
Because I'd like to produce weekly.
Yes, and this show is going to be a little bit of a teaser for it. Just know that Camel Crawl's coming, down the pipe in August-ish, maybe.
I'm thinking around my birthday.
Around your birthday?
So I'm thinking August is when I'll.
That's perfect. And you and I are going to try to do a show about once a month.
Yes.
So
yes.
If the listeners, if you like this dynamic and you like hearing brother and sister go back and forth, then know there's going to be future shows. And we just wanted to do a little bit of an intro today, and then we'll get into, I'm sure, every topic you can possibly imagine.
We could be here all day and all night talking.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, there's plenty to discuss and plenty of stories to tell.
Yes.
Of course, we will have to watch that, Bradley.
Exactly. Hey, that's what editing's for, right?
Right,
Yes.
right. Yes. Michael, we're counting on you.
Exactly. We're counting on you, Michael. No incriminating information.
Yes.
So, but I really enjoyed having you, Heather. And
well, thanks
I love you.
This has been great practice.
Yes.
And you are a perfect intro to these shenanigans I'm getting myself into.
Yes. So, just please stay tuned for future episodes with Ultimate Health Media, as well as be on the lookout for Camel Crawl. There's going to be lots of crossover, I'm sure.
Oh, yes.
So, but...
you might be my only guest.
No. You're not going to have any problems. It'll be too entertaining for people to say no. But, I guess we'll go ahead and close out. Are there any closing statements you want to make? Or
No, I just appreciate being on here, and thanks for listening. I really, you're probably from this area if you are listening, and this is a wonderful, wonderful group of people.
Yes.
It's really encouraged me and given me a lot of ideas, and
awesome.
I think it's just a great place all the way around.
Yeah, we love living here. And, Heather's talking about Middle Tennessee, so Winchester, Manchester, Tullahoma, all these surrounding areas. We live in Hillsboro, but Tennessee's been very good to us, and a huge part of that is the people. Just a ton of great people.
Great, and such... all in unique ways.
Yes.
That's what's so cool about it. You're not going to get bored down here.
No,
for sure.
No. Well, I'll go ahead and close out, but thanks again for listening. Thanks again for joining me. And
thanks for having me.
If you guys want to hear this show or any past shows, you can go onto our website. It's ultimatehealthtn.com, or you can look up Ultimate Health Media on Spotify, iTunes, any of those big platforms. Also a YouTube channel, so check that out. But again, hope you enjoyed it, and please stay tuned for future episodes. Thanks.